Are you ready? We're now less than 4 months away from the Iowa caucuses when Democrats will get the first chance to vote in an excruciatingly long process on who will be their candidate to take on Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Polls have been surprisingly mixed as the candidates really are still in the starting gate, but one thing has been consistent over the last couple of months. Even though, believe it or not, there are still 19 candidates in the race, the polls have shown over the last couple of months that it is narrowed to a definitive 3 as the frontrunners. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. You know, as young, hip, and diverse as the Democratic Party claims to be, it is fascinating that 3 white candidates over 70 are the front runners. Joe Biden is 76, Elizabeth Warren is 70, Bernie Sanders is 78. And make no mistake about it, they are the front runners and far out ahead of the rest of the pack. In the latest Fox News poll just out, Joe Biden leads with 32%, Elizabeth Warren 22%, Bernie Sanders 17%. But in the Economist poll out just 2 days ago, Joe Biden had 25%, Elizabeth Warren 29%, and Bernie Sanders 14%. In the Quinnipiac poll out earlier this week, Joe Biden 26%, Elizabeth Warren again 29%, Bernie Sanders 16%. 3 polls out in the last week, and no other candidate other than those 3 was able to get double digits. The closest, South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who in the Economist poll got 7%. Now look, there is certainly time for a candidate outside the top 3 to gain some momentum. There's a lot of debates to go, and there will be intense interest as we get closer to the February 3rd Iowa caucuses. But the indication right now is that Warren is eclipsing Biden as the frontrunner. She certainly has the momentum in the polls, and in the 2 state polls of the early contest, she is leading Biden in Iowa and New Hampshire. Those 2 wins will create even more momentum for Warren as the primaries then head down south, where Warren isn't as appealing to African American voters. And in the South, African Americans are a big percentage of the Democratic voting bloc. And that brings us to Democratic candidate Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. He is a walking, talking anomaly in the history of presidential campaigns. Democratic voters really like him, just not as president. Patrick Murray, the director of the Monmouth University poll, one of the polls the Democrats use to see who gets into the debates, told me that during a recent interview.
What's fascinating about him is that his favorability numbers are high. He's among the highest favorabilities in the field when you ask Democratic voters who they like. He's just not converting those voters to him being their first choice.
But then Murray said something fascinating. He said those high favorability ratings make Cory Booker a top pick for the right candidate. Let's see. Is there a candidate out there that has a good chance of winning but doesn't poll well with African American voters and could use somebody like Cory Booker who does poll well with African American voters? Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker are a match made in political heaven. So here's what to watch for in the upcoming debate. See if Cory Booker continues to show support for Elizabeth Warren by not going after her, while at the same time taking on Joe Biden on the subject of race.
Mr. Vice President, there's a saying in my community, you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
If Cory Booker continues those attacks on Biden, it is possible that the Warren and Booker campaigns are already teaming up. Then watch for another sign of an early alliance after the contest in Iowa and New Hampshire. That's when the field historically narrows significantly. Cory Booker will probably be one of those early casualties, as his polling, as it is nationally, is abysmal in Iowa and New Hampshire. If, when he drops out, he endorses Elizabeth Warren and then campaigns for her in South Carolina, he will automatically become her Veep frontrunner. His long audition for that job continues this week in Iowa at the 4th Democratic presidential debate. I'm Larry Mendte. We'll talk again soon.